Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Marriage Matters. For those of you who are watching for the very first time, my name is Glenn Coleman, and I'm joined as always by my beautiful, adoring wife,
Tanya Coleman.
The Tanya Coleman, for those of you who don't know. If you don't know, you better ask somebody. But this is Marriage Matters. This is a show where we talk about all things relationships. Primarily, we talk about marriage relationships, but, we like to think that, what works in marriage works in every area, whether that's with you and your kids, you and your parents, co-workers, people maybe you manage, or just the person waiting in line who just cut you in line at Walmart.
Lord help.
So we talk about relationships.
Yeah.
So, with that being said, I always like to do a check-in. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm doing good. How are you doing?
I am doing. I'm hopeful. I'm excited, and I'm full of anticipation.
Awesome. I like that. That was better than I'm doing great. Huh?
Yeah, I'm trying to work on using my words, my
Good.
emotion,
I
my
like
feelings.
that.
Trying to work on that. So anyway, anything else you want to add before we get started with today's topic?
No, I am doing great, and I am all of those things that you said as well. I am excited. I'm hopeful, anticipating. There are some great things on their way.
Okay, excellent. Yeah. So today, last week we talked about how to argue, and I guess maybe this week could maybe be looked at as a continuation or extension of that. But I wanted to title this week's podcast "Cheap Shots." Okay. And I know what you're thinking. It's not that kind of cheap shot. We used to say, when you're fighting and you're not looking, maybe somebody hit you, and that's a cheap shot.
That's a cheap shot.
Not that type of cheap shots. Not that type of cheap shot. That's hard to say real fast. Say it fast 5 times.
Cheap shot, cheap shot, cheap shot. That's not fast.
No. You better be careful. You may say something else. This is a PG podcast.
Yes.
Well, most of the time it is. Anyway. Cheap shots. So cheap shots as in, sometimes we may not take a physical jab at our partner or our spouse, but sometimes we take word jabs.
Oh yeah.
And, the old saying goes, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me.
Right.
Which we know now is not true.
Yeah.
Words create, words can affect. Sometimes words do more harm than physical abuse. Sometimes words, because, I don't want to get into all that. But anyway, words can harm. But and I guess really what I want to talk about is, that sometimes there's some situations where, maybe I'm doing something or I'm saying something. And I'm really, or you or whomever is saying something, and I'm really saying it out of concern, or I'm saying it with pure intentions. Right. I'm not trying to demeanor, I'm not trying to do anything like that. And then, but what I'm saying, the other party may take some offense to that.
Sure.
And instead of just coming out and saying it, they'll make like a little sly comment, maybe to, say something like, well, you asked me to clean this up, but I ain't the one always leaving my shoes in the middle of the floor. And it's said, kind of under the breath, or kind of, it's a cheap shot, and I guess, what I want to talk about today is how that affects your relationship, right? And I guess even how it affects the person who's making the cheap shot.
Yeah.
So it's like we really have to learn how to voice our opinions, voice what we think, voice what we feel, in a way that is going to make the relationship better. It's going to enhance the relationship, right? Because those type of little jabs, those little cheap shots, those do a lot more harm than we know. And it's like it's just if you keep doing that over and over, those little pecks add up, So that's kind of what I want to talk about today. Does that make sense?
Let's get in it. Yeah. Let's get in it. I think it's an important topic. It's something that people do not only in marriage, but like you mentioned earlier, in any relationship. When we are frustrated or offended by someone, then we tend to, especially if you have someone who's being passive aggressive, they may not be upfront, with their frustration or their offense or their aggravation, but they'll say and do little things to get under the other person's skin or get them back, so to speak. And that there's no clarity, the other person doesn't know that maybe you feel offended or you're upset with them. So it's important to really just bring those things out in the forefront. Thank you.
That didn't bother you?
No.
Really? Okay. It was bothering me. I'm like, her hair is in her eye. Oh my God.
I didn't really feel it.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
No,
go ahead.
You're fine.
What you were saying.
But yeah, so sometimes we don't say what we really mean or what we really need to say, and then that offense and things build up, and then you start coming out with the jabs. Yeah,
and we always talk about I guess that's our marquee saying now is to talk often, honestly, openly, and often about everything. But just honestly, I want to just hone in on that because I think that's what we're talking about. We have to learn to be honest in our relationships.
Absolutely.
I was listening to a podcast the other night, and the person on the podcast was talking about how they do this thing they call fair or foul. And he was like, fair or foul, when I invited my babysitter over, I told my babysitter, me casa es su casa, right? It's like, make yourself at home. If you want to get something to eat, whatever. So he said, one time I noticed that, we had some leftovers in the refrigerator, and it's like, she kind of hit it a little hard there. He's like, but I wasn't, tripping. I told her, make herself at home. He's like, then the next time she came over to babysit for us, I opened the refrigerator and I noticed she had made her a little to-go Tupperware container, right? And then he said, about 5 minutes later, I hear a knock on the door, and it's her. She's like, oh, I left something in the refrigerator. Whoa. So she proceeds to go into the refrigerator to get the leftover. And he was like, hold up, fam. He didn't tell her. Right. But again, he wasn't honest, right? He didn't. Right. He's like, hold up, fam. Is that fair or foul? And I'm like, first of all, that's foul. Yeah. But
just bad manners.
But my thing is this: you should not have told her "Me casa es su casa." Mi casa. I'm sorry. Mi casa es su. You shouldn't. If you are not. And I think a lot of times in relationships, we say things out of courtesy, and and don't get me wrong. I'm not saying you should be rude, but I'm like, if you, or maybe even you should have put some parameters in place. And I know you're thinking, well, you know what? I don't want to have to go through all that. That's too much. You shouldn't have to do that. Some things people say some things are just to be understood. Well, that depends on a lot. It depends on culture. It depends on how you were raised, where you come from. It's like I'm growing up. I grew up in a house where it's like we go somewhere, you don't ask for nothing. You sit down, you shut up. Kids ought to be kids ought to be seen and not heard, right?
Yes.
But where she comes from, it may be if I'm saying make yourself at home, I'm meaning make yourself at home.
Literally take my shoes off, put my feet on the sofa.
You know what I'm saying? Go ahead. If you want to make you a to-go plate, make you a to-go plate. So my point is we have to be honest in our relationships. And so many times we don't do that. And I don't know, I know for me it's and I'm still working through it. It's the fear. Sometimes I think we're afraid that if we really show our true selves, that people are really not going to like us or
they're not going to think we're nice people.
Approve of us or think we're nice, what have you. But I'm learning to live and be my true self, and that's one of my what we call our GNAs, our God-named authenticity, is to live authentically unique so that others may be free to be themselves. Because I really believe that the more authentically myself that I am around others, it gives them, because there's so much, and I'm doing it again. I know I always do it. I be talking. I always tell Tanya.
You be talking.
I always tell Tanya when we do this together. I say it's like double. You got to just jump in there, man. You know, I'm turning. You got to just
I'm
jump
not
up
that person though. That to me, that's rude, and I'm interrupting, and you're like making a point.
Okay.
So I'm letting you make a point.
Well, let me make my point. What was I saying?
Don't know.
Look, I forgot. Being your authentic self. Oh, I know what I was saying. So many times, especially coming out of the church world, we want to be seen as a certain way, and we put on all these masks and all this stuff, and then when we get home, we don't act that way,
right?
And then because we do that, then everybody else who comes to the church thinks, oh, I got to do that too. And we get to church and nobody really knows. And so when something pops off and goes down, you're like, I can't believe it.
Right.
Well, that's because that wasn't the person.
Right.
That was never them. So my point is just to be really honest in our relationships in every area. We have to learn to be brave enough to tell the truth.
It's while you were talking, I was thinking about the saying "nice for what." Like,
tell me more.
Why is it that you need people to see you as a nice person? Why is that so important to you? Wouldn't it be better if you were authentic and you were very real about who you are? And so what comes into play is let your no be no, let your yes be yes. We tend to have this thing where if we really don't want to do something, someone comes to us and comes to you and says, hey, I need you to, if you don't mind, I need you to watch my kids Saturday night. Well, your plan was to be at home relaxing. You've had a long week and you don't want to do anything on Saturday, right? But because you want to be seen as nice, oh, okay, yeah, I was going to be home anyway, but you really don't want to do it. What's wrong with just saying I'm not available?
And then what do you do behind that person's back?
Oh, she always asks me to watch her kids.
Exactly.
And,
well,
all of this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So you talk negatively about that person because they've asked you to watch their kids, and they may even now have an expectation that you watch their kids 2 times out of the month because you always say yes, even when you don't want to. Yeah. But we have to learn to, hey, I can say no. No can be no, N-O, and that's fine. I don't have to explain it. I don't have to give a dissertation for why I'm saying no. No can be I'm not available, period. We tend to say I'm not available because, and we give off this list of things. You don't have to do that. I'm just not available.
So there's this quote that I found. It says, where honesty flows, peace goes.
Yes.
Shout out to Dave and Ashley Willis.
Yes, absolutely.
The Naked Marriage. Yeah. Where honesty flows, peace goes.
Yes.
So sometimes I believe the reason why there's not peace in our relationships is because we're not being honest.
Absolutely.
And like I said, I've said this before, is that we want to be peacekeepers, but because I don't want to say anything because I just want to keep the peace. But there is really no peace. You want to be a peacemaker, and the only way you can be a peacemaker is if you're honest. So don't allow that time to pass by, and then you harbor that anxiety, and then you look for moments to throw the cheap shots at your spouse or other people in the relationship.
Right.
Well, you just need to learn to be upfront and be honest and be open. And just get it all out on the table,
right? And
just be peaceful. Tanya and I, when we first got married, we used to always talk about how we didn't, we never argue, whatever. But as about I guess 3 or 4 years into our marriage, we realized is that we just wasn't being honest.
Right. We weren't discussing.
We wasn't saying right, and so that's why we never argued. And even though there was no arguing, there still was no peace.
Right.
Because we still were in turmoil internally with ourselves and with each other.
There, and that's where the talk openly, honestly about everything all the time comes from, because. As for some people, they may think, that's a lot of work. Like you're always having a discussion. Well, it doesn't have to be some big sit down discussion, but when you build your communication skills, it's just a natural thing. It's just like, hey, babe, remember I asked you about doing this for me the other day and it's still not done. I've kind of asked you a couple of times, do you mind, taking care of it? When you do that, when I have to ask you to do the same thing more than once, I feel like you're like what I need from you, you're not putting it as something that's important to you. Mm-hmm. You're not putting me first, and I know it may be a small thing to you, but it's a big deal for me. And so you have that conversation, allow your spouse to process it, give their feedback, or rather they're apologizing or they're saying to you, yeah, I understand, I didn't do what you asked me to do, and you did ask me a few times, I apologize, I keep getting sidetracked, but I'm going to make it a priority to take care of it, today. Mm-hmm. That's quick. That's, it's less than 2 minutes, but you're open and honest about your feeling. You're not sitting on the phone with your girlfriend saying, I keep asking him to do this and he never wants to do anything that I need, never does anything I need for him to do. And then you're getting into all this and there's so much emotion and feeling. And now your girlfriend's mad at him and it's just a whole lot of unnecessariness, know?
Yeah.
So, that's that talking openly and honestly about everything. So if I'm upset with you about something, I may take a minute and process why I'm upset, figure that out for myself, but I'm going to bring it to you. I'm going to talk to you about it. I'm going to bring it to the table and not take the cheap shots or try to avoid, because we're not 100% proof. We don't get it all right 100% of the time, but we do our best.
And I'll be honest, I do the cheap shots sometimes for fun. That's kind of like how I pick. And I have to recognize and understand that Tanya doesn't like that all the time. Well, probably none of the time. But so I have to work on that because I do it for fun, but it's still not something, the piece doesn't flow, right? Mm-hmm. One of the things, I know the other thing I was going to say about being honest, one of the things that really, when I would get gifts for Tanya, and I can remember, I'm not even going to bring it up because she said I was bringing it up, but I bought her a gift and she was unhappy with the gift. And she told me that. Well, first of all, my ego was pretty crushed because I thought I had killed it. I thought I was like, boom, you know what I'm saying? What's up? Mm-hmm. But after that, I realized it was the best thing she could have ever done. Mm-hmm. Because now I know how to give her gifts. Mm-hmm. But I could have been going all through life 20 years later and still thinking that I'm killing it, but I'm not,
right.
know. And go ahead.
Some people may think, well, that's just, you're not being grateful. You should just be grateful. Okay, how many times have you just been grateful when your grandmother bought you socks every Christmas? Or underwear for Christmas? I used to like my socks. I used to like my Scooby-Doo underwear, and I was... You probably would have rather get that $5 in a card or $10 in a card, and you could have gone to the store and bought something, some candy or something with it, right?
I guess so.
And
right.
so, but we are taught, that's passed down to us, that we just need to be grateful for what we have. Yes, we are grateful, but should I have to hide my true feelings if I receive a gift and it's something that I really don't like, especially from my spouse?
Yeah.
Now, if it's from... my auntie twice removed, then I will probably just say, thank you very much. I appreciate it because you thought of me.
And re-gift it.
That. But for my husband, it's important that you know me.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So if the gift that you gave me, I wasn't necessarily ecstatic about it, and maybe even a little disappointed, is it important that I communicate that to you?
Yeah. So
that doesn't become an ongoing thing year after year?
Yeah.
And then I'm frustrated, I'm mad, I'm angry, and I'm like, okay, it's Christmas and I'm moving out. Like, what?
Yeah.
No.
And you're right.
Just talk about it.
And I'll go back to, going back to what you said about, it's also the way you don't want to say, what in the bleakity bleak 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 you bought me this cheap bleakity bleak gift for?
Right.
No, but you can do it in the way, okay. I know we watch a lot of The Love Hour with Kevin and Melissa Fredericks, Kevin on stage, Miss Kevin on stage, and she said every time Kevin gives me a gift that I don't like, she said I always start it with, okay, listen.
So,
but anyway, just finding a way to do that, because there's a scripture that I like in Ephesians 4:15. But it's talking about how, we shouldn't be, the way we were, but now we should, and it's Ephesians 4:15 starts off like this: speaking the truth in love. So if we speak truth, but it's not in love, then it still doesn't. It still doesn't bring the change that you want to the situation. Because a lot of times we can speak truth, but it's not. It's just like I always laugh. I'll just say, as some older people, as people get older, they become a little bit more freer in what they say. And
sharing their opinion.
When somebody, and I don't know, maybe you you may not have had this happen to you, but I know I've had it happen to me. And you walk up and somebody say, "Oh boy, you done gained a lot of weight." Now that is true.
Right.
That is true,
right.
But I don't know if that's in love.
Right, and that may not be the way we want to greet one another.
But if somebody would come to you and say, someone that you respect and say, and I actually had one of my mentors came to me one time and he was like, look, I care about you. I love you. And I want to see you do well in life. I want to see you prosper. He said, but part of doing that is you need to get in better shape, because I don't want to see, he told me a story about one of his friends who had made all of this money and then, lost a leg to diabetes because of his eating habits.
Right.
And he's like, I don't want, so I just really want, he's like, if I could do anything to help you or encourage you, whatever. That's speaking the truth in love, not just saying, boy, you fat. You do. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, what I'm saying is to be able to communicate that. You want to be honest, but you want it to be out of love.
Yes.
Even if it's saying something about the person or saying the way you felt in that situation, you still want to do it out of love. It's like, I'm telling you this not just because I don't like this gift, but I'm telling you this because I love you, and I don't want to resent you, right? Because I love you. So I'm going to tell you this. These are the things I like, and again, like I said, one of the things that I think one thing that's going to keep your spouse or the person you're in a relationship with from being honest with you is if your ego can't get out of the way. Because I think sometimes because people already know how we're going to react. I had this conversation with my girls the other day. I was like, I need to be able to trust you guys. And I told them, I said, I'm going to do my best not to get angry. I'm going to do my best not to be upset. I said, but I can't promise you that just because, some situations I just hadn't grown.
You got to give me a minute.
I hadn't grown to that level yet. I said, but I'm going to try my best because I want them to know that they can come to me and I'm not going to just
anything.
Right. I'm not just going to blow up. So that's part of allowing people to be honest with you is you being open. I mean, there's some people that I'm thinking of right now that there's some things that I would love to tell them.
Sure.
But I can't be honest with them because I know how they're going to. Now, this is outside of
the marriage.
Right. If that's the case in the marriage, we need to work.
Absolutely.
We need to work that out because this relationship is too. It doesn't work without that.
Right.
But there are some people that I know that I just can't tell them some things that I think or the way they said something to make me feel a certain way just because I know that how they're gonna react to it. So one key to making sure that people can speak truth in love to you is to work on your ego and not having to have your ego. And even if your ego get crushed, sometimes it may need to.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah. That's good. Sometimes we need to, especially in marriage, we have to be able to, and we probably talked about this a couple of weeks ago, to share one another's blind spots, Yeah. And God will put people in your life, including your spouse, that they've earned the right to speak into your life as it relates to blind spots, or, they can see some things from the outside looking in that you can't see. And those are opportunities for growth. If you can't receive, especially when it's coming from a place of love, someone speaking into your life things that you need to correct, like, you know, your mentor with the weight loss things. If you would have received that in a negative light, would have gotten offended and been angry with him, you could have possibly ended that relationship and all that he poured into your life after that. You know, we have to be open, and not everyone off the street can come in and pour and speak into your life, but your spouse should be able to. And then there are other people that God will place around you that can do that, and they can do that in love. And we have to learn to be open, to hear it, to receive it, pray about it, and then, okay, well, Lord, how do I fix this? You know, how do we fix this kind of thing?
So I guess the overall, what we're saying is you need to get it all out on the table.
Yeah.
And get it all out on the table, not out of frustration, but get it all out of the table. Get it all out on the table because I love you and I want this relationship to work. And I know as long as I am operating, you know, this way, you know, with I'm using the cheap shots to get my release or my relief. And that's a lot of times how we get release or relief in relationships is we don't just come out and say things, but we give the backhanded comments, you know, to try to, you know, let people know how we feel about it. Well, don't do that. Just come out and say it, you know, in love, you know, A, B, and C, right? And don't do the backhanded.
Yeah.
You know, don't go for the cheap shot.
Yeah. Just be open, be honest, and just do it from a place of love. Yeah.
And I'll share this last scripture and we'll wrap it up. And this is Proverbs 17:9, and it says, I'm kind of paraphrasing it, but it says, "Love prospers when a fault is forgiven, but dwelling on it separates close friends." So it's like that's part of forgiving is just getting it all out there.
Right.
But when you don't get it all out there, what happens is that's what you do. You just dwell on it and you think about it, and it produces separation in relationships. And when you have enough separation, then we call that division.
Yeah.
You know, and that's, you know, sometimes you can get to a place to where you're so separated that you can't come back, or you think you can't come back from that.
Yeah.
You know, so that's our encouragement to you today, tonight, this morning, whenever you're watching this, is to just speak it honestly.
Yeah.
Just say, and the person that's on the receiving end, don't be so quick to judge it or come back. Really listen to what they're saying. You know, I always say, you know, with Tanya, I had to stop listening to how she was saying and listen to what she was saying. You know, so I'm listening to what she's saying. And then the other thing, and I think I said it last week, I said it the week before, but I'm gonna keep saying it because that's where I'm at right now. That's what I'm working on, so I'm just sharing it with you. But I'm trying to learn to allow people to speak their truth. Because, okay, even though I didn't mean it that way, that's the way she felt it. That's the way she perceived it. So I need to let her speak that. So I can't automatically, well, I didn't mean it that way. I didn't mean it. That's not what I meant. That's not. Here's how I perceived it. You know. So I may need to change because of the way I perceived it. And you may need to change because of the way you presented it.
Right.
So we probably both need to do some work.
Need to do some work always.
You know?
Yeah.
But if we never say anything, we'll never know.
Yep.
All right. You got anything else?
No, that was good.
Pretty good. Yeah. No cheap shots. The word kind or the physical kind.
Yeah.
Definitely not the well, neither one of them. Anyway, this has been another episode of Marriage Matters. My name is Glenn Coleman.
I'm Tanya Coleman.
And that's not how we say it.
Nope.
We say it like this. This is Glenn and Tanya Coleman reminding you that your marriage matters. We'll see you next week.
Bye, guys.